Another day, another nickel is how the saying goes. And today is no exception. Another other Saturday means another Beaver Longface video. Rolls right off the tongue. And in this particular Beaver Longface video, I will be obtaining 300% in Cuphead using only the spread shot. That means beating every main game boss on Expert and DLC boss on Expert. But first, let's go over the rules. First, the only way I can deal damage is with the use of the spread shot. Second, no charms. Third, no supers. Fourth, no glitches, except for the expert mode glitch, so I can skip normal mode. And fifth, have fun. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. Not really. With that all out of the way, let me take you to the second episode of the 300% saga. Also, please like and subscribe. These videos take a ridiculous amount of time to make, and so many of you aren't even subscribed. So please make my day a little bit better, and please subscribe. And like while you're down there as well. Thanks, and goodbye. To start the challenge off, we go to the root pack, where similarly to the P-Shot challenge, they aren't really too different to how I would normally fight them. I have nothing good or bad to say about this weapon on this boss, other than that the EX is really nice in the final phase because you can jump up in EX to hit most of the bullets. Next up is Goopy Legrand in A Rush of Ooze. I feel like I never actually say the names of the fight, I kind of just say the boss names, so we're changing it up. Anyway, this weapon is a little annoying to use on the first two phases, because whenever he bounces around, I need to chase after him in order to actually deal damage, but it's all made up for in the third phase because since he doesn't have a hurt box, I can jump EX at the perfect time and all 8 shots will connect with the boss to deal massive amounts of damage. And with that, on Hildeberg. I'm just kidding. We actually aren't going to be doing any plane bosses in this video. Well, because the plane doesn't necessarily have a spread shot. The only 2 possible shots on the plane are the pea shooter shot and the lobber shot. So that means that next time we see a plane fight will be in the lobber episode, which means our real next stop is over at Cagney Carnation. Cagney was a little bit of a challenge because it shows how poor the range of the spread shot is. If I'm not on the closest possible platform to Cagney, I can't deal any damage. And the EXs on this boss absolutely suck because whenever I use them, I'm lucky if I hit 1, maybe 2 bullets. And those deal absolutely no damage. But terrible range aside, it overall wasn't that bad. People seem to be a big fan of saving the best for last, but I decided to save the worst for last. Well, the worst of aisle 1. Because, trust me, this challenge took 8 hours and it gets way harder down the line. Welcome to Ribby and Croaks. A normally not so bad boss turned into something that took way longer than it should have. Let's go over the positives first though. First is that the wide spread shot allows me to take out the fireflies almost effortlessly. And if we get really close to Ribby and Croaks and crouch, I can hit both of the hitboxes, which doesn't deal any extra damage, but it does charge my EXs twice as fast. Too bad the EXs are useless though. Just think about what I've shown you so far. The EXs can carry you in a boss if you can get inside of its hitbox. So the Root Pack and Goopy, they're amazing bosses to use the EXs on. But when you face a boss like Cagney or Ribby, and you can't really get inside that hitbox without getting hit yourself, so the EXs just tickle the boss. Combo this with the fact that we need to be point blank to deal any actual damage, we get ourselves a very bad situation. Especially on the final phase where we need to focus on avoiding the randomized platforms as well as staying close to the boss. And if any of that sounded annoying or difficult, it's nothing compared to some of the challenges that we face in the future. But with Ribby and Croaks defeated, it is time for Aisle 2. Aisle 2 definitely brings some challenges, and a perfect boss to showcase these challenges is Baroness von Bonbon, because holy shit, this boss was bad. Anyone who watches me speedrun knows that I despise this boss. The main thing I hate about this boss is that RNG is a real factor here. The mini bosses that you have to fight can make or break your run. 4 out of 5 mini bosses ain't too bad. Yeah, I have preferences, but for the most part, they're all good. But the cupcake, I despise the cupcake. This thing is constantly moving around, forcing me to run after him every single second, and it makes the boss go on forever. And when I do eventually defeat him, I either have to do another mini boss or go to the final phase, which is brutal. Now, in the final phase, we do get a little bit of grace, and that is at the start of this phase, I can spam EXs, massively taking down the boss's health. But once you've done this, there is no more free windows. You have to jump, face the boss, get a few shots in, and then run away over and over and over again until you finally get that sweet, sweet knockout. Skipping to Jimmy and Wally, we go over to Beppy the Clown, where we actually get excited because I can say with confidence that this is the best shot for this boss. Yeah, the first phase maybe it doesn't excel, but it definitely doesn't do bad. And just look at the following phases. The balloon phase, melted. Horse phase, decimated. Final phase, the EX spam carries once again, and we shred Beppy the Clown. Grim Matchstick. Is this boss ever not a roadblock? Because holy shit, it put me through hell. What? He was dead! Probably could have got some hits in there. Okay. Oh, I thought it was flamethrower time! No, I gotta actually... Okay, damage boost is not the strat. No! Again, only halfway is crazy. Dude, I'm tickling him. Grim was filled with bullshit. The first phase wasn't overly bad, but the biggest issue was just I had to stay close to the boss at all times. And this is very similar to the second phase, where as long as you can stay close to the boss and listen for the sound cues, it really doesn't get difficult. But I did occasionally get hit here. The final phase, as you guys just seen, is brutal. I don't know why, but playing this phase, it just felt like the boss is always outside of my range. My best moments to attack is when he uses his flamethrower attack and I stand underneath the flamethrower. But the downside of this is that I can't jump. Only way I can move to a different cloud is by dashing. And this dashing messed me up so many times. Hours upon hours of effort was just trying to beat this. And when I finally did, I was just feeling on top of the world. Yes! Oh my god! It's crazy how aisle 2 is the shortest aisle in the whole challenge, but I genuinely think it took the longest amount of time to beat. But don't worry, there's still lots of challenge left in this round. Rumor Honeybottoms is very similar to how it was in the pea shooter video, with the main difference being that the spread shot is actually really strong, so I can just melt through every single phase. And it just makes her final phase have almost no HP, so I can get through it extremely quickly. Next, we head over to Briny Beard because I'll do anything to get this boss over with. There's not a whole lot to say about Briny Beard. The general strategy just consists of staying close to the boss and backing up whenever he uses his squid shot attack. In the final phase, it is very important to stay close, as when he does his laser, when you crouch down, you can still hit him with the spread shot. Sally's stage play can really be summed up in one word, and that just being, it's a breeze. I mean, the boss already isn't hard, so give me a high damage dealing weapon with the only downside of it being that it has no range. Sally doesn't even move that much. It is extremely easy to just stay right up close with her, so it's just not hard. Even in the final phase where she's constantly moving, the shot isn't even bad. I'd argue that the spread is one of the better shots for this phase, because all you need to do is jump and you will hit her. Werner is also low-key the same. I mean, he moves a little bit in his first phase, and some of his attacks require you to stay a little bit away from him, but it's not hard. The second phase, he almost entirely stays stationary, so while I wouldn't EX here, it doesn't mean you can't plow a load of damage into him. And don't think I forgot for a second that you can EX spam through the final phase, making this boss have zero challenge. I know I've said this about another boss before, but I genuinely think that every time I play the Phantom Express, I just like it less and less. I don't think it's a bad boss, but it's just not for me. The first phase is kind of lame, the same old, staying close to the edge and parry whenever you can. Very similar to the Skull phase, but you do need to be a little bit more careful with your parries as it's much easier to mess up. Lollipop and the Conductor gave me a surprising amount of challenge, and the only reason behind that is because I just rushed myself every time. You see, the spread shot is really good, especially when you factor in the fact that you can almost insta-kill one of them if you just spam your EXs. And once one head is down, all you need to do is just take your time and wait for the next one. I would wait for the bone wheel to come down before I parried, just to minimize the chance of me getting hit. And whenever I parried, I would try and use EXs whenever I could, but I would never take the unnecessary risk. And before I knew it, it was time for Inkwell Hell. The day I struggle in Hell will be a very cold day in Hell. It'll also be known as the same day that I go over the mini-bosses in detail. All you need to know is that I went for the Tipsy Troop, Pippin Dot, and of course Mangosteen. If you're wondering why I picked these three bosses, it's because you can get extremely close to each of the mini-bosses to just destroy their health. Speaking of destroying, King Dice is already dead. Yeah, sometimes I forget that once you get this boss down, it's just really easy to beat. The Devil isn't overly bad either, because the spread shot is actually one of the best weapons for the Devil. It can do insane damage in the first phase, with the only caveat being that I need to jump, and in the second phase we can just spray into his eye. Third phase, EX spam, and when we get to the last phase, we literally just look up and win. S rank, by the way. It still feels weird not having the devil as the final boss, but it also feels weird that over half of my footage is on the DLC alone, so that just goes to show how much of a challenge this place is going to be. Glumstone the Giant shockingly isn't too bad. His first phase is extremely basic, with the only thing being that I need to stay close to the boss, but I'm used to that by now. The second phase is essentially the opposite of how it was in the pea shooter video, because I can actually kill the little bouncing bugs so easily just by looking up at them. And the third phase is not in the slightest bit hard. Just keep alternating platforms and shooting up, and it's just as simple as that. Yeah, it takes a while to get the win, but we still do get it. Mortimer was honestly quite difficult, and I don't fully know why, but he took a lot of time. While I was fighting this boss, moments of it felt like I was playing Dark Souls because of how fast I just needed to react. Especially on phase 2, since I needed to stay so close to the boss in order to deal any damage, I had to react to all of his various attacks super quick, and I just got hit by them so many times. And sadly, the final phase doesn't get any easier. I'd honestly say it gets harder. On top of me being bad at this phase, needing to stay close to the boss when I'm on low health and dodge some of the hardest attacks the DLC has to offer, the hardest of which being the ice cream and the cup attack, it just makes the whole thing extremely difficult. But we do beat it. We waste absolutely no time to move on to the Howling Aces, and after spending an hour on Mortimer, it was nice to move to a boss that I was pretty confident in. The Howling Aces is honestly a really good boss to test weapons out on. I don't think that there's any bad weapons that you can use on this boss that would make it objectively bad. The first phase is also all about just keeping balance of dodging and damaging. Second phase is as easy as standing on the edge and killing the mini dogs, and same as always, once you have the head tilt method down, you basically got this whole boss down. The Moonshine Mob was definitely a challenge, but not one that couldn't be overcome. The first phase, I kinda always just wanted to be separated from the boss by one floor, so I would either have to shoot directly up at him or directly down. I'd also like to pop all the bombs as soon as they spawned in, just to avoid getting hit later on. The second phase, we would just follow the flow of the damage beam, staying in front of them at all times and destroying the minions as they spawned in. The third phase actually presents a good challenge. I found it best to just stay on the side with the tongue moving around in order to deal damage, and then when the dust balls became too much, I would just focus on getting rid of them and then switch back to damaging the tongue. The final phase was actually a little difficult because remember, the spread shot has very poor range, but it turned out it really wasn't a big deal as all I needed to do was lock in and jump. There's no doubt that some of these DLC bosses were really difficult only using the spread shot, but they were all nothing compared to what Saltbaker had in store for me. Going into this, I really thought that Saltbaker wouldn't even be that bad, but he was insane. The first phase is just a straight bullet hell. I used the strategy of parrying sugar and then EXing in order to deal damage, and it actually helped me out a lot. But the hardest part of this whole boss was honestly on the second phase, which normally doesn't happen. A normally fairly easy phase with not that much going on turned super difficult, and the reason for that being that I couldn't hit the top 2 pepper crackers. Turns out that not being able to hit half of the hitboxes actually makes a big difference in how easy the phase is, and this phase dragged out so much, and I was just bound to get hit eventually. The third phase goes over swimmingly, and the last phase is definitely hard, but it's also a phase I've practiced staying alive on, so we managed to get it.
Yeah, like a nice little toss. It wasn't anything that could easily cut.
Yeah.
And she just hit it off her foot, and like it hit the tire of the truck. And it's like, bro.
And finally, with that sweet win under our belt, we have officially 300% of Cuphead only using the spread shot. Overall, this weapon was very good. It 100% had some bad moments and bosses that I probably wouldn't pick it on, but nothing that was impossible. If I factor in the fact that when I'm playing a regular playthrough, I can always have a secondary weapon equipped, I'm going to give this weapon a solid 9 out of 10. It's kind of hard to give any weapon a perfect 10, but I think this is a super good score and accurately represents how I feel about the weapon. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and please like and subscribe down below. You have no idea how much effort I put into this. And I'll see you all next time for a video that doesn't involve 300% in Cuphead. Thank you all so much, and goodbye.